Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Today's sponsor is Audible. They're the leading provider of spoken audio and entertainment. Listen to an audiobook wherever and whenever you want. I do. For more information, to get your free trial, go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. Man, things have been going like gangbusters. New housing recovery. Consumer looks like he's waking up. What could be better? Well, are we just witnessing a crack-up boom? Are things really just going to happen the way they did in 08 and 09? Well, we don't know, but perhaps John Rubino does of dollarcollapse.com. And welcome back, John.
Hey, Kerry. Good to be back.
So you wrote this article about velocity of money and the crack-up boom. Just briefly, can you just say what velocity of money means? Because most people don't know.
Sure. The velocity of money is basically just a measure of how fast money changes hands. In other words, if a bank gets some reserves, how quickly do they loan that money out? And then once the person borrows money, how quickly do they spend it? And so a higher velocity of money means a faster growing economy, basically, because each dollar that is created by the Fed turns into more and more credit as it is turned over in the economy. Conversely, if banks don't want to lend their reserves, people don't want to borrow, nobody wants to spend, you get a low velocity of money and a correspondingly weak economy. And that's what's happened in the last few years. The government has been pouring reserves into the big banks, but the big banks have just been letting that money sit there. They haven't been lending it out, in part because they had a near-death experience in 2009 and they were in no hurry to start leveraging themselves again. And in part because there just aren't that many credit-worthy borrowers out there because individual finances were so decimated in the Great Recession. But lately, that's starting to change. Stocks are way up, real estate is picking back up, and banks that are sitting on this mountain of reserves that earn next to nothing are looking at appreciating home prices and families with better balance sheets now that their houses are worth more and their stock portfolios are up, and they're starting to think that, hey, maybe these guys are good for a car loan after all, or whatever. Let's do an adjustable rate mortgage or an interest-only mortgage, because the collateral is going up, so we can't lose. And so, in other words, we're getting back to kind of 2007 levels of excitement in the financial markets. Now, what that means is that this, trillions of dollars of bank reserves that have just been sitting on the sidelines could start pouring into the economy here pretty soon. And that will, if it happens at a time when already the stock market is at record levels and real estate prices are creeping back to 2007 levels, we'll see possibly the crack-up boom that Austrian economics talks about as the final stage of a long credit expansion. And this is when so much credit is being created and so much speculation is happening that people finally figure out that the net effect of all this is to make the money in their pocket increasingly worthless. And so as soon as they get some dollars, they turn it into real stuff instantly. So the velocity of money spikes and asset prices go through the roof, which is the same thing as saying that the value of the currency falls through the floor. And this can happen very, very quickly in Austrian economic theory. It's a matter of weeks or months that you see a previously stable currency just vaporize. This happened in Weimar Germany, and it happened quite a few times before that in other European countries when they created too much debt and started destroying the currency. So the idea that it could happen here seems kind of far-fetched right now, looking around the world, but we're creating the conditions in which this theoretical idea could become reality pretty soon.
That is definitely scary. And, I see it myself. There's two things where the government is just giving away more and more money to people, and that's one way that you can increase the velocity of money, and that is look at the government programs. Number one, you have the EBT cards gone from 30 million to 48 million, 1 in 5 families, and that's money that just gets printed out of thin air and literally put in the pockets of the recipients. Actually, it gets put in the pockets of the supermarkets and the strip clubs and whatever other place the recipients choose to use the EBT card. But it's money created out of thin air that just gets spent. And the other thing is you look at things like the Obama phone, which is relatively small in comparison, but multiply that times hundreds, and the money printing from the U.S. is just on full throttle open, and it's going into people's pockets as opposed to being what you would call, what you're referring to, sterilized on the balance sheet of a too-big-to-fail bank. And when the money gets away from the too-big-to-fails into the people's pockets, that's when the velocity picks up. And you have this, and I think the evidence is credit card applications, free money, balance transfers are back with 0.99% interest rates for a year. And that is ample evidence, I think, of what you're talking about. And then 3.5% mortgages. All that money is getting malinvested into things that will not build the economy, but will hurt it for the next bust.
Yes. And, Kerry, I would have bet you anything in 2010 that was the last bubble. There was no way we were going to be able to do this again, because we've done it 3 times consecutively in the previous 2 decades, where we have a problem, print a huge amount of money, the economy picks back up, we have a speculative boom, and then a bust. But we had accumulated so much debt that we're now close to $2 million per family of 4 if you add up all the debt in the system. That it seemed like that had to be the end, and yet maybe it's not. Maybe we're going to have another bubble here, and you just named a lot of indicators that we are. And I think it's still not guaranteed, because you've got a lot of stuff going on in the world that is profoundly deflationary, weighing against all the money that's being created by central banks. So it's not clear how this plays out, but the evidence that we're heading into another period of speculative growth and increasing bubble dynamics is becoming compelling. And if it happens, this is a catastrophe. It'll feel good for a little while to the people whose stock portfolios are going up and houses are getting more valuable, but it'll create another layer of malinvestment on top of the tens of trillion dollars that already exist that will just totally blow up when the time comes. If we thought 2009 was scary, then 2015 will be orders of magnitude nastier when it comes. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it's sooner rather than later. Nobody knows for sure when this whole Rube Goldberg economy becomes disassembled and just collapses. Probably it ends when the dollar loses its reserve status, but it will occur in due course. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of when. Yeah.
And in the meantime, just fascinating market cross currents. Gold and silver are a story all of their own here. And I don't know if you saw this morning, overnight, they collapsed. They had a flash crash. And then from the bottom have spiked. So it's possible that we finally flushed out the last of the speculative froth in the precious metals markets, and now we're getting ready to form a base and start moving up again, which would be nice, and it would be consistent with the speculative bubble forming across the board idea, because if we're going to start radically depreciating the dollar, which is what would happen if all the bank reserves flow into the economy, then you would think the precious metals will be one of the beneficiaries of that, and eventually the biggest beneficiary. So it could be that we'll look back on this past week as the final bottom, when the pain ended and the fun started again in precious metals.
Yeah, well, I would never underestimate the capability of the boys to give it one last hit for the road and pick up as much as they can at discounted prices. But, another thing, I know you and I talked about it. I don't think we talked in an interview. And let's just take a 1-moment break here. Thank you so much to Audible. We love Audible. I'll tell you a great story. It kind of saved a cross-country trip with my daughter and I. I was driving her out to Denver. She graduated from college. I told her, Britt, I'm not going to pay for you to party in New York. You have to find a job, and if you want to go to grad school later, we'll talk about it. But in the meantime, you got to get a job, and you have to do something. You're not getting paid to be in New York to party. So she got all huffy, and then she did some research, and she said, Denver, third best place in the country for recently graduated college students, new college grads. And she tells me she's going to move out. At first I was a little upset. It's your kid leaving the nest. You feel a little uptight about it, but I knew she made a good decision. She had thought it out. It was rational. So we're driving out there, and you know how it is with your kids. They're much smarter than you. They're quicker. They have so much more life experience, and they just know everything. And this led to some spats. So finally, after about 3 or 4 hours of driving, we weren't talking to each other anymore. So put on my iPhone, and I had downloaded the book, The Social Network, which is the story of Facebook about Mark Zuckerberg. And the movie was based on it. And we started listening to it and said, wow, I never listened to an audio book before. This is wonderful. I love it. And we started talking about the book, and we played it for about 8 or 9 hours of the trip, and it helped us patch things up. We totally got along well after the book, and it was just a wonderful experience. And the thing about audiobooks, yes, your imagination when you read, nothing can be better than that, let's face it. But when you're listening to an audiobook, you're getting a story told to you. It's a different experience than reading. Maybe it's not for everybody, but I think everybody should try it. So go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. Sign up for a free 30-day trial, and you will get a free audiobook, and I highly recommend it. You got nothing to lose. It's totally enjoyable. It's one of those things every day or several times a week I look forward to playing, listening to, and you stay up on the latest books. The newest books are almost all published in audio format the day they're released. So if you're into Michael Connelly, David Baldacci, and a lot of others, Grisham, all those books wind up there. And the Grisham books are really have an incredible narrator. The latest guy, he's amazing. I think you'll enjoy it. So audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. It's been another Triple Lutz Report. Kerry Lutz signing off. Okay, Bitcoin. We're back. We're talking about Bitcoin. Have you noticed they're cracking down on the Bitcoin exchanges, John?
Oh, yeah, which is completely inevitable. Bitcoin started to turn into a threat to the fiat currency regimes out there. And so the question was how they would respond, not whether they would respond. And yeah, they're starting to crack down on the exchanges. I kind of expected them to send the cyber warfare unit of the U.S. military after Bitcoin and to try to hack the system and just take it down. And that for various reasons is very hard to do, but it's still probably something that'll be attempted if Bitcoin keeps growing and becomes this independent currency and payment system that's beyond the reach of national governments, because something like that is a mortal threat to the current system. So I won't even pretend to understand the basics of the technologies that are operating here, but the dynamic is fascinating. So who knows what will happen in the future, but right now it looks like the empire is beginning to strike back, and we'll see what kind of an effect they can have on something like Bitcoin, which doesn't exist within any one nation. It just exists in the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept of Bitcoin as an alternative currency, and This one, I think it just has too many flaws. Most of the transactions get cleared through this exchange, Mt. Gox, GOX, that is the largest one, responsible for clearing 63% of all Bitcoin purchases, but they're attacking the other ones as well. And Homeland Security is the entity that's going after them. And gee, doesn't it make you feel good that Big Sis is protecting the value of your fiat currency? I feel better.
Well, you just have to add that to the list of things the government is doing right now that appears to violate the Constitution. Okay, our privacy is being invaded from every angle, in every way right now, and they're monitoring this conversation. They're monitoring your email. They're compiling a file on you that contains every bit of electronic communications that you engage in, and technologically now it's possible that the camera on your computer or on your TV's DVR is watching you 24/7 and recording everything that you do. So,
well, you can't see me right now, but I'm making a gesture to them if they're watching, so they should get the idea. If you're watching out there, I wish you a good day.
That's in your file somehow.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah,
they'll put me at the top of the list.
But yeah, we're really creating the conditions in which a big brother can be born. We have all the technological capabilities, and it appears that we have the will now. We've got the political will to create a police state. And so the question really is, when do they flip the switch and make it overt instead of just piecemeal? Because
or did they already do it and they didn't tell you?
Well, I don't think they will tell us. And there will come a point when they don't have to tell us. Our ability to force them to tell the truth about this stuff is going to just vaporize. Free press is already minuscule compared to what it used to be in terms of the power to coerce the government into telling the truth. So,
all these scandals coming out now are just little milepost markers on the road to totalitarianism. It's there. When you can use the IRS to attack your enemies and to quill free speech and the right of assembly and everything else, and you get away with it, then what can't you do? It's really that, and then to tap reporters' phones, email accounts, you name it. Yeah. That's what's going on.
Well, see, the thing is that this stuff has been going on forever. I mean, the IRS has been a weapon in the hands of the last 10 presidents probably, but the difference now is that we have some extraordinary technological capabilities to go along with the will to use government agencies to harass political opponents, and that really changes the game, because we're not talking about paper files anymore moved from one filing cabinet to another. We're talking about databases that can mine and collect everything that you do. Every credit card transaction, every phone call, it can be logged and then mined for keywords, and it just goes on and on. So the ability to create a dossier on you that contains every potential bit of dirt, every weakness that you've got, and that can be used to coerce you one way or another, has never been like it is today. And it's only getting more and more extreme. The ability to collect and mine data is growing exponentially, and the cutting edge is in the hands of the government right now.
Yep, that's it. It's there. They're doing it. Basically, everybody has a file that will be suitable for the appropriate authority to use to prosecute them and for whatever criminal offense you've committed. And I don't remember who said it, but basically said that every day you commit at least 3 felonies. And, for me, I think from the time I get out of bed to the time I brush my teeth, I probably could earn a life sentence. It's absurd.
Yeah, it really is. And see, even felonies aren't necessary anymore. Criminal acts. We're reaching the point now, since most of our money is electronic, where it can just vaporize. And you go to use a credit card and the card is refused. And you go to your ATM and it refuses your card. You can't get any money out. That's the kind of thing that is within the capabilities of the guys running things now. And so its ability, their ability to just wipe out your financial life with you having no recourse, because what do you do if Visa just won't take your calls anymore? Or your bank just says, well, the account doesn't have any money in it anymore. I don't know what to say. Well, what do you do? There's nothing you can do. And so for people who are speaking out against this process, or who are just in the wrong political party at the wrong time, this becomes a real possibility. It's terrifying, Kerry, and I really don't have an answer for it except to diversify your financial assets as widely as possible. It won't be done in every country, and physical assets are still beyond the reach of cyberspace. So if you own land in another country, or you've got gold bars stored in a place that isn't yet susceptible to this kind of stuff, then you've got something. But
and you should probably keep the Gulf Stream on hold, ready to leave at a moment's notice, right?
Yeah. It's terrifying to have to talk about this stuff, and sad, because we really should have been, at this point, just accelerating into the singularity. We could have had this more or less libertarian society that was growing and progressing and just getting better and better if we just controlled ourselves 30 years ago. Beginning in the 1980s, just not borrow so much money and then continue to control ourselves so that our balance sheet is nice and clean, and the government is financed at a level that's reasonable and not excessive, and the system isn't always on the verge of spinning out of control, so the government always has an excuse to increase its power. None of this had to happen, and the world could have been very different, but we blew it, and so now we're heading into what could be a pretty dark time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it will be for a period of time, but I think that we've kind of crossed the point where we can't really go back technologically. You can't go back to the way things were 100 years ago or even 5 years ago. And we either move ahead or we go extinct. There is no choice. So I think that realization will dawn on you very quickly once the events unfold, and you'll make the decision to move ahead like the rest of humanity, and whatever is required, we're going to have to do it. But there will be a period of chaos and an unraveling. And maybe these are good things. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to finding out. But you know what, John? You don't have any choice.
No. We have to play the hand we're dealt. And like you said, it can be a good thing if you make the right decisions heading into it. Every big crisis in history has produced a lot of new rich people, because they were the ones who were positioned for it. The Depression was horrendous for 95% of American citizens, and the best time ever for the 5% that had the assets that went up in value. So you really have to think through what you see coming, and then position yourself for it. And that's what makes this so interesting. The first part of our conversation was about, are we heading into a crack-up boom? Or is it a false alarm, and are we heading back into a deflationary crash? And there are signs of both. So I think right now is one of the most interesting and one of the most perilous times to have capital to invest ever. Yeah. And we'll know a few years from now what the right thing to do was. And right now we just have to pay attention and diversify and try to be ready to move when things become clearer, because at some point we'll know whether we're in a crack-up boom or a descent into the 1930s again. And at that point, you want to be positioned for it. So that's why you and I are going to have a lot to talk about over the next couple of years as all this unfolds.
Oh, yeah, and we're going to have a lot to talk about in a month, because we're going to be at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium in the city of Dallas in the Republic of Texas. You're going to be one of the key speakers there, John, and we're really excited about it. And if you haven't done it yet, go to John's site, dollarcollapse.com, click the link on the right side, and sign up today. We got 15 incredible speakers going to be there, which John is one of them.
I'm looking forward to it, Kerry.
Hey, me too. So it's always a pleasure. dollarcollapse.com, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, libertymastermind.us. Sign up today. And we will see you in Texas soon, John.
Great, Kerry. See you then.
This show was brought to you by Audible. When it comes to audiobooks, there's only one place to go. That's audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ. Sign up today, get a free 1-month membership and a free audiobook. And send us an email. Let us know how you like that book.